Awakening is the soul's call to evolve, and our initiation happens through shadow work. Shadow work, when practiced with sincere intention for healing, becomes a sacred path of awakening. It's an inner transformation and a soul evolutionary journey. This journey is not a single moment of change, but an unfolding process, an alchemical maturation that often spans many lifetimes. It begins with an awakening, a deep soul stirring that we may not fully understand at first. We begin to perceive life differently. But what we do once we awaken is crucial. Awakening opens a portal, a rare, powerful opportunity. It's an invitation to heal, to witness, and to remember who we truly are. Welcome to Star World Astrology. My name is Sharrie, and I am a Western tropical astrologer, and I have a special interest in shadow work. If you enjoy this kind of content, please don't forget to like and also subscribe if you have not already. It does help my channel to grow. Also, I want to remind you that I do offer personal natal chart readings and one-on-one shadow work sessions for those who want to go deeper into their healing journey. Also, please feel free to join me for my free shadow work workshop, which I offer every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you are interested in joining, please just send me an email at starwellastro@gmail.com. This is a supportive space to reflect, share, and grow together as we explore the path of emotional healing and soul transformation. Awakening is a deep inner stir, a soul level yearning that calls us to turn inwards. Awakening is an invitation, a portal in time that allows us to access our deeper self. Yet many of us miss this cue. Instead, we begin searching for answers outside of ourselves, in books, in teachers, in groups that we believe we belong to, in relationships, in external achievements. But nothing external can fulfill what this inner yearning is truly calling us towards. What we're feeling after an awakening is the soul's desire for union, not just with the higher self, but with the oneness of divine spirit itself. At the core of this longing is the truth of who we are, pure consciousness, beings of light, already a part of the unified field of spirit. Now, awakening is the soul's call to return home, to remember and reunite with divine oneness. And although this may sound like lofty ideas, this is a process where this reunion cannot be found outside of us. It must be discovered within us. And the most transformative way to look within is through the practice of deep shadow work. This is where we begin to heal and unify the fragmented aspects of the self, bringing them into conscious awareness so that they can be integrated and made whole. Shadow work, when practiced at this deep level, becomes a portal, a sacred space for healing, for witnessing, and for transmuting the emotional wounds we've carried often unconsciously for lifetimes, for generations. Awakening is only the beginning. It's the soul's first call to evolve. Once we respond to this inner call, once we choose to truly see, we can no longer ignore what has been revealed. We cannot unknow what we now know. We cannot go back to sleep. True awakening makes it impossible to return to unconsciousness. This is where the real soul work begins. The yearning that comes with awakening doesn't fade if we ignore it. In fact, it becomes more uncomfortable. Life may begin to deliver difficult lessons, each one designed to push us inwards. Yet, we've been deeply conditioned to seek knowledge from the outside world, but no amount of external information will ever bring us into true alignment with our inner knowing. The world gives us information, facts, ideas, teachings that we might repeat to ourselves, hoping for transformation. But information without integration changes nothing. Real answers only emerge when we are living in full integrity with our soul. And to do that, we must face the shadow self. There's no way around it. The only way is through it. And it takes real courage to walk this inner path back to our true and authentic self. At first, awakening may feel blissful, sort of like a spiritual high. We might feel expanded and elevated and even euphoric. But eventually, the high settles and we find ourselves back in the same reality we thought we left. Only now, something has changed. We perceive it differently. We see through a more expansive lens, more objective, more aware. And this new perception can be disorienting, especially when the world around us still views life through narrow, conditioned lens. Awakening is not the destination, it is the invitation, an invitation to go deeper, not outward, but inward, into the sacred psycho-spiritual process of shadow work. This path calls for both desire and courage. Courage to face our fears, our wounds, our lower conditioned mind that unconsciously shapes our actions, choices, and experiences. But as we do this work, as our awareness expands, we begin to heal. And through that healing, we open the heart. And from the open heart, we come to know the greatest truth, that we are unconditional love, and it already lives within us. Recognizing a deeper sense of self, a self activated by expanded awareness, is what allows for the true integration of the shadow. Now, the shadow self holds karmic wounds encoded not only in our emotional body, but within our DNA, the living water, the blood of the soul's story. These wounds have accumulated across lifetimes, living silently within the unconscious realm of the conditioned ego, until we bring them into the light of awareness by witnessing ourselves in action. They remain unhealed, repeating in cycles. Over time, we practice self-witnessing, we begin to develop deeper discernment. We start to recognize higher truths such as we're not our thoughts and we're not our feelings. They arise, but they don't define us. We are, at our core, pure consciousness. We each carry the divine power of awareness, the sacred ability to observe ourselves. This witnessing is not a concept to believe in or a goal to strive towards. It is who we already are before any identity, belief, or behavior took form. But to evolve, we must first meet the ego identity and its shadow self. We must courageously face and truthfully know the hidden, reactive, conditioned parts of us. This is where self-witnessing becomes one of the most effective practices. Why is this important? Because once we awaken and our awareness expands, we begin to perceive the ego identity for what it truly is, a construct programmed by family systems, culture, trauma, and belief systems. The conditioned personality is not who we are, but rather a mask we've worn, shaped by unconscious emotional wounds. When trauma or painful repetitive experiences occur, they leave imprints, emotional memories stored as wounded patterns in the subconscious. These become karmic wounds, which get reactivated through the shadow self. Unconsciously, these wounds influence our choices, our reactions, our relationships, and our behavior, causing us to live from the wounded ego identity called the conditioned personality rather than from the soul, which is the authentic self. So we repeat cycles, different people, different circumstances, but the same inner wound playing out until we do the work to witness and integrate the truth of what's really driving us. Many bypass this truth in favor of becoming better, more spiritual, more enlightened, more successful. But even the desire to become someone new can be a trap of the conditioned personality. Many approach shadow work as a form of self-improvement, using techniques to reprogram the mind. But if we go deep enough, shadow work ceases to be about fixing and instead becomes about facing. At this depth, shadow work becomes soul work. We're no longer trying to become anything different. We're returning to the truth of who we already are, a pure soul that is authentically aligned in divine spirit. When we heal through facing the emotional truth, our path of transformation begins. The emotional truth is not the ultimate truth, but it is what feels true to us in any given moment. And that matters deeply because it's the doorway into the self. When we slow down and slowly observe ourselves, we begin to access what lies beneath the emotional triggers, the core feelings that reveal our inner landscape. To witness without becoming consumed by our thoughts and feelings means to observe without identifying. And this is a sacred practice. When we hold awareness in this way, we create space between the observer and our emotional attachments, especially the attachments we hold on to as a personal story. This is why it's so important to notice repetitive cycles of thoughts and emotions. These patterns carry encoded messages, signals from our shadow that point directly to conditioned beliefs and karmic attachments. If we can sit with our emotional truth, not denying them and not over identifying with them, we begin to decode the programming that has silently shaped our lives. And this is the alchemy. Once acknowledged, faced, and understood, emotional truths become the gateway to healing. Through this deep psychospiritual work, the false self begins to dissolve and the authentic self emerges. Reality is a mirror. Life constantly reflects our internal state. What appears external is a mirror of the internal world. With this awareness, we reclaim our power, not by controlling the outside world or what we feel on the inside. We shift our perception to a more objective and expansive view of ourselves. Even our most painful experiences, when seen through the lens of expanded awareness, are catalysts designed to awaken us and bring us back into alignment with our soul's purpose. And the soul's highest purpose is to awaken, transform, and realign in divine spirit within. Awakening requires participation. Awakening does not happen by accident. It is seated deep within us, often across lifetimes, and it begins with a soul level yearning. Typically, it is catalyzed by crisis, loss, or emotional upheaval. When the identity we once relied on begins to crumble, this disturbance is not punishment, but initiation. And the soul finds its spiritual readiness in the crucible of challenge. This is where shadow work becomes soul work. This path is not about bypassing emotional pain. It's about turning inwards towards it with full presence and sacred intent. Only then can we truly integrate the karmic lessons we are here to learn. The path of inner alignment with time, practice, and a genuine desire to serve the soul's call, we begin to heal. We begin to walk the middle path, centered, grounded, and spiritually attuned. As we heal emotionally, we can remain embodied and centered in the body's wisdom. We notice what our gut is sensing, what our heart is feeling, what our mind is communicating. When the heart is healed, it opens. Shadow work helps us to heal at a heart level while balancing the mind to find the neutral ground so that we can intuitively sense our gut instincts, our intuition. So once the heart opens, it can finally receive clear signals, both from the gut, our primal intuitive sense, and from the mind when it is balanced and not driven by fear or fragmentations. This is what true inner guidance feels like. Pure alignment of the gut center, where we tap into our personal will through an open heart and synthesized mind. Without this harmony, we cannot fully trust our inner voice. And when all three centers are aligned in truth, we begin to live not from survival or conditioning, but from the soul's wisdom. Once we awaken, each of us eventually arrives at a Red Sea moment, a point of no return on the soul's journey. And this is not just a biblical metaphor. It represents a metaphysical crossing, a passage between the hemispheres of the mind, between the logic and the intuition, the masculine and the feminine, the control and the surrender. To cross the sea is to integrate the higher and lower mind. Through the practice of shadow work, we begin healing and balancing both hemispheres of the brain, the left brain and the right brain. This is necessary for us to walk the middle path, the path of inner stillness, equanimity, and spiritual clarity. The middle path is the neutral zone. It's the space or void between our thoughts. Here, when the mind is no longer at war within itself, we experience harmony, not division. We no longer chase illusion. We begin to see reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. And this is when our spiritual eye, also known as the central eye or third eye, begins to open. When the heart, mind, and the gut, which is our will, are aligned and healed, our inner knowing emerges, and wisdom and insight flow in unfiltered by fear, doubt, and projection. So the Red Sea is symbolic of the lower emotional body, our unprocessed emotions, reactive desires, and karmic attachments. In esoteric mysticism and astrotheology, water represents emotion, but also truth. So in its highest sense, emotional truth. So to cross the Red Sea is to confront those truths head on without running, avoiding, or projecting. But once we make this crossing, we may find ourselves in a spiritual wilderness, a place of inner confusion, and which is symbolic of the 40 years of wandering in the desert. This phase requires deep faith because the path is unclear and rewards are not immediate. Here, we learn to live not by external validation, but from spiritual sustenance, what the ancients called manna from heaven. This is the intuitive guidance, moment by moment, drawn from within. If we do not trust this process, we risk turning back, returning to the bondage of Pharaoh, the false security of our lower desires and conditioned habits. Awakening is not the end, it's the invitation to discipleship, a sacred surrender in the inner call of spirit. It's a commitment to listen deeply, to obey the divine voice within, and to heal the emotional body so that the soul can take the lead as the authentic self. So what is discipleship? In astrotheology and esoteric mysticism, the 12 disciples of Jesus represent more than historical figures. They symbolize the 12 cranial nerves, the spiritual faculties of the awakened brain. When Jesus, the archetype of the healer, meets his disciples by the sea, he is awakening these inner aspects of consciousness. The Son, S-O-N, is the Christ, the divine consciousness within all of us. And the Sun, the S-U-N, is its mirror in the heavens, moving through all 12 zodiac signs, illuminating the karmic lessons of each soul season. Each spiritual trial or crucifixion we face is an initiation. Each one teach us to die to a false identity and to release karmic wounds. And in this sacred process, we heal the shadow self, refine the ego, and prepare for inner resurrection. This is the path of inner alchemy. As we heal, the 12 cranial nerves connected to our psyche, senses, and nervous system are activated to house a higher frequency. And this allows us to become vessels for the Holy Spirit, not as something external descending from above, but as a living current of divine awareness flowing from within us. The Red Sea moment is where the soul chooses evolution over fear, where the mind surrenders its war and finds peace in union, where the heart, the will, and the mind align to become a throne for spirit to enter our lives through divine guidance. This is the journey from shadow to soul, from bondage to liberation, and from egoic survival to divine authorship. It's not easy, but it's sacred. And when we truly walk this path, we don't just awaken, we resurrect. The practice of self-witnessing is a vital tool on the path, yet for real enlightenment to take place, even this must one day be relinquished. Like the Buddhist metaphor, using one thorn to remove another, but both must eventually be discarded. If we cling to the witnessing identity, we form a subtler ego that resists full surrender. Eventually, even the observer must dissolve into the ocean of divine unity. For true liberation and the death of all identity to happen, this must be realized. So even the authentic self, though a more refined version of the ego, is still a self that we identify with. Ultimate union requires the dissolution of even the observing self. The true liberation comes through the grace of merging with Christ consciousness, a state of being where there is no self. No self remains to cling, and this is the death of identity and the rebirth of oneness. The work is to walk in both worlds as much as we can and find the inner balance. Check inwards for guidance in every step we take. But we soon learn that while here on earth, we take on a body, a physical body that requires care. So as we walk the pathless path back to ourselves, we're aware that even our most noble desires must be questioned. Wanting to become a better version of ourselves can mask the egoic intentions. Even our motivation to serve or gain knowledge comes from our distortions. So we witness all things without judgment, to see things as they are, without identification. To uncover the genuine intentions behind our actions is part of the refinement process. And this path is not easy, nor is it for everyone. Should we decide to walk the path of discipleship into spiritual initiation, it is a lonely path, a lonely rite of passage that requires us to walk through the desert of our mind and to have inner fortitude to continuously surrender. Yet through grace, mystical signs and revelations will come. But these are not goals, they're reminders. We must remember not to cling to the experience. The soul must keep walking home free of identity to merge and align within ourselves as our true source of life. No matter which road we should take, they ultimately lead back to the self, not the egoic self, but the divine self in union with Christ consciousness. For in the end, the soul's liberation is not about becoming someone, but remembering who you've always been. So still, we live in two worlds. While awakening draws us inwards, we remain in a body that requires care. We walk the pathless path, checking inwards for every step while tending to the physical form we inhabit. Yet even our most noble desires must be questioned. So the longing to become a better version of ourselves will carry the scent of the ego in disguise. Our motivations to serve, to teach, to gain spiritual knowledge, these too must be observed without judgment. And this is the path of the inner refinement, to see everything clearly without clinging, without resistance, to witness our thoughts, our choices, our intentions, not to control them, but to understand them, to uncover their true source. This path is not for everyone. It is a path of discipleship, a sacred silent initiation that takes place in the desert of the mind. It requires fortitude, honesty, and the willingness to surrender again and again. And yet through this surrender comes grace. So this is the great paradox of liberation. And it's not about becoming anyone. It's about remembering who you have always been. So thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video. And also I want to remind you that I do offer natal chart readings. If you're interested in one-on-one shadow work, my information is below. And a reminder that I am offering every week, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, a free shadow work workshop where we work through our experiences with practicing the self-witnessing practice and the things that we have learned from it. And we grow together and evolve as much as we can. And if you're interested in joining me, just send me an email at starwellastro@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to tell you how you can join us. Hope you'll consider joining us. And again, thank you for joining me, and hope to see you next time. Bye.